For generations, Canada and the United States shared more than a border. They shared trust, prosperity, and a sense of family. Our economies were so intertwined that a car built in Ontario might cross the border half a dozen times before completion. This integration wasn't just about business. It was about people. Truck drivers, tech entrepreneurs, and farmers whose livelihoods depended on seamless trade. We stood together through wars, built NORAD, and launched the St. Lawrence Seaway. Agreements like NAFTA and the USMCA simply formalized what was already true. Our fates were linked. The system wasn't perfect, but it delivered decades of growth and stability. We believed this partnership was unbreakable, as solid as the Canadian shield. The idea that it could unravel seemed unthinkable. We trusted that logic and mutual benefit would always win out. But in a rapidly changing world, even the strongest bonds can be tested. We were, as it turned out, tragically mistaken. In 2025, everything changed. The Trump administration's return brought a harsher America First agenda, and this time, Canada was in the crosshairs. Tariffs slammed into steel, aluminum, lumber, and, most painfully, the auto sector. The USMCA was sidelined as executive orders and national security claims bypassed established rules. For Canada, it was a gut punch. We'd played by the rules, yet suddenly we were treated as adversaries. The integrated supply chains that defined our economies began to unravel overnight. A 25% tariff on Canadian autos threatened the entire North American industry. Lumber and aluminum sectors, pillars of regional economies, were crippled. The message from Washington was clear. The old rules were gone, and Canada's reliance on the US was now a liability. This wasn't just about economics, it was a rupture of trust. Millions of American jobs depended on trade with Canada, but politics trumped partnership. The special relationship was shattered. Our greatest friend had become our biggest threat. We faced an economic storm alone. The shock wasn't abstract. It hit families and communities hard. In Oshawa, Ontario, auto plant layoffs devastated a city built on car manufacturing. Generations lost not just jobs, but their sense of identity and security. In Quebec's Saguenay region, aluminum smelters slashed shifts, and young people saw their futures vanish. A millwright, once proud of his work, now faced uncertainty and anger at being targeted by an ally. Small businesses suffered too. A family furniture maker in BC lost their US market overnight, forced to lay off half their team. American customers were frustrated, but politics had closed doors on both sides. Grocery prices rose, savings shrank, and anxiety spread. The trade war's numbers told a story of economic damage, but the real story was human hardship. Canadians everywhere felt the loss of stability they'd always trusted. The bond we thought unbreakable was gone. Across the country, the pain was real and personal. The trade war wasn't just policy, it was a daily struggle. The cost was measured in lost dreams and broken communities. Canada had to act. Waiting for Washington was not an option. We responded with targeted tariffs, but more importantly, we launched the Global Canada Initiative to diversify our trade. Trade missions to Asia and Europe became urgent priorities. Agreements like the CPTPP and CETA, once secondary, became lifelines. Canadian businesses, long focused south, now had to adapt to new markets, regulations, and cultures. The government stepped in with support, funding, logistics help, and training for small businesses. Innovation flourished as companies retooled for global customers. A Manitoba pork producer found new buyers in Japan. A Waterloo tech firm opened an office in Dublin. These weren't isolated wins. They signaled a broader shift. Slowly, exports to the US declined as global trade grew. The transition was tough, but it was empowering. Canada was building a more resilient, globally integrated economy. We were no longer just America's partner. We were charting our own course. The crisis forced us to think bigger and act bolder. The trade war triggered a painful recession, but it also sparked a wave of innovation and self-reliance. Canadian industries pivoted to higher-value goods and new markets. Clean tech, AI, and agri-food companies found global niches. Government support fueled R&D and infrastructure upgrades. Ports in Vancouver, Prince Rupert, and Halifax expanded to handle booming trade with Asia and Europe. Rail and logistics networks were modernized, creating jobs and connecting the country. By year's end, Canada's economy was more dynamic and less dependent on the U.S. The scars of the trade war remained, but so did a new sense of confidence. We learned the dangers of over-reliance and the power of adaptation. Canada emerged stronger, more resilient, and ready for a global future. Our new identity was built on ambition, not just proximity. The 2025 trade war taught the world that trust and predictability are the true currencies of global commerce. When the U.S. abandoned its commitments, it shook the foundations of the international order. Boardrooms and governments everywhere took notice. Even the strongest agreements could be undone overnight. Businesses hesitated to invest in unpredictable markets. Countries like those in the EU and CPTPP became more attractive for their stability. The difference between a trading partner and a true ally became stark. Canada and others realized economic partnership and security alliances must be separated. New economic blocs formed around shared values and reliability. The U.S. found itself increasingly isolated, not by enemies, but by its own choices. The damage to trust was deep and lasting. The world learned that a rules-based order isn't abstract. It's the bedrock of prosperity. When trust is lost, everyone pays the price. As we look ahead, the lesson is clear. Resilience is our greatest asset. The trade war exposed our vulnerabilities, but also our strengths. Diversifying our economy is no longer optional, it's essential. Investing in people, education, and innovation is the path forward. Our most valuable resource is Canadian talent and ingenuity. Rebuilding trust with the U.S. will take time and commitment to shared principles. Canada must balance its American partnership with strong global ties. We can never again be so vulnerable to a single partner. The crisis gave us a chance to reimagine our future. We've proven we can adapt and thrive. The Canada of tomorrow will be defined by how we rose to meet this challenge.